All right, this is the video of me going over the Chapter 2 review. So the first one says order from least to greatest, so of course negatives are going to go first. The first thing I always do is I change them all to decimals and I make them have the same place value. So like this is already a decimal, it's negative 5.2, but I see this has 2 decimal places, so I'm going to make sure that this one also has 2 decimal places. So I have negative 5.20. This one already is in a good place value, but I'm just going to write the value above. Negative 12/3, I'm going to divide it out, and 12 divided by 3 is 4, so that's negative 4. Put the same decimal places, so 2 decimal places. Same thing, I always put the same decimal places. All right, so going from least to greatest, if you are looking at a number line, the number furthest from 0 going to the left is going to be worth the least. I also like to tell students that negative numbers are like owing money, and the more money you owe, the less you have. So you can look at it either way because it's the same thing. The bigger the negative, the less it's worth. So this one would be furthest from 0. It is also worth owing the most money. So if I owe this much money, I have way less than if I owe these. So negative 5.2 would go first. Remember, we're going to write it how its original number looked. The next least value would be negative 4 because it would come closer to the negative 5 but be further from 0 from these two. So I would write it as its original number, negative 12/3. Okay, after that one, 25 cents or $1, you owe both of them. This one's further from 0. It is also owing more money than 25 cents. So negative 1, I'm writing it in its original form, and then negative 0.25. And that's my answer to that one. All right, over here I need to change everything to decimals, and again, I like them to look like the same place value. So 5/3, you would use alpha y equals option 1. 5/3, math, decimal, enter. It is 1.666 repeating, so I'm just going to round it to 1.67. No pun intended. Okay. 3.2, it's perfect. I really don't need to do anything, but since this has 2 decimal places, I'm going to make this one have 2 decimal places. 3.20. This is negative 3.20, and I'm just going to separate them. Negative 3.20. And then I have negative 3 and 1/3, and 1/3 is 0.33 repeating, so I'm just going to round it to the hundredths place. That way they all have the same place value. Again, when I'm going from least to greatest, the negatives are going to be first, so it's going to be one of these two. The more money I owe, the less I have. So this one I owe more money, so I have less. So negative 3 and 1/3 is going to come first. Also, it's further from 0 to the left. And then my other negative. Again, we're writing them in their original form, so those two are gone. And now I'm looking at these least to greatest. It's just regular positives. $1.67 or $3.20. Well, $1.67 is worth the least. So I got 5/3. And then my last one is 3.2. All right, moving on. Find the sum or the difference. On these, you're simply going to type them in your calculator. So the first one, I have 2 plus negative 2.6. No, I do not need the parentheses, but yes, you can put it in if you want to. So negative 0.6. Okay, the next one, I have negative 0.3, negative 0.3, plus negative 2.3. And I have negative 2.6. Okay, this one I have 4 and 3/5, so I'm going to do alpha y equals option 2. 4 and 3/5, tab out, plus negative, alpha y equals option 2, 3 and 2/5. You can literally write your answer as 6/5. I'm perfectly fine with an improper fraction. If you would like to change it to a proper fraction, you would simply say 5 goes into 6 one time with 1 left over, keep the denominator. All right, number 10. A company has a profit of $2.07 million in its first year, negative $1.54 million in its second year, and negative $0.76 million in its third. Find the company's total profit. Okay, if it's asking for a total, you're simply going to add. So I need to add 2.07 plus negative 1.54 plus negative 0.76. So I'm going to let my calculator do the work. 2.07 plus negative 1.54 plus negative 0.76. And I got negative 0.23. Now that's not my answer. It is 0.23 million because all of these say million. So all you had to do is tack on that million and you're good to go. Number 11. A scientist studies the diving abilities of 3 seals and records the elevations they reach before swimming back up to the surface. Find the mean. Mean is average. So this is from 6th grade. Average means you're going to add all the numbers, then divide by how many are there. So I'm going to add these 3 numbers. Let's get our calculator. Negative 380 plus negative 307 plus negative 354. So I added them. And I'm going to divide by how many are there. Well, there's 3 numbers, so I'm going to divide by 3. And that's your answer. Negative 347. Now, that's not my final answer because I must label. This is a word problem. It says find the mean of the following elevation. So the mean is negative 347 meters. All right, evaluate. Evaluate means solve. So you're going to solve these expressions, and they're going to give you the value of x and y. I like to use highlighters, so anytime I see an x, I'm going to put a 2.5. So here's an x, here's an x. Anytime I see a y, I'm going to put a negative 3.7. All right, you're going to have to be careful because I do see this is going to be a minus sign and then a negative. So I'm going to have a minus negative. And yes, your calculator will do a minus negative for you. All right, so x. Instead of x, I write 2.5. Minus, because the minus sign comes from here. Now I write the value of y, which is negative 3.7, plus 1.4. All right, so here we go. 2.5 minus negative 3.7 plus 1.4, and the answer is 7.6. Now, if you chose to change, it's going to be 2.5 plus 3.7, and yes, you would get the exact same answer because your calculator knows to do that. All right, this one, x. X is 2.5 minus the absolute value of negative 3.7 minus 26. All right, so I'm going to put it in exactly how I see it, 2.5 minus. Now I need the absolute value button. The absolute value button is found with math. So I push math. I go over to num for number, and I want the absolute value, number 1. And it's going to give me that absolute value bracket. So negative 3.7 minus 26. And there's my answer, negative 27.2. All right, the next part, we're literally just punching in our calculators. You are going to have to know the difference between a negative and a subtraction sign. This says find the product or quotient, so they're all being multiplied, so these are not subtraction signs. This is negative 5 times negative 3.2. Well, I know a negative times a negative is a positive, and the answer is positive 16. Okay, I have 6/7, so alpha y equals 6 over 7, tab out, times negative alpha y equals 2/3, tab out. If you use the parentheses, you have to close the parentheses for a multiplication. I could have just used a multiplication sign, and that's perfectly fine. Negative 4/7. Okay, next one, 8.3. divided by negative 8.25. Now, this one has some repeating. It has negative 1.0060606, so I can use the repeating bar. I also could change it to a fraction if the calculator would let me, so I'm going to hit math, fraction, enter, and that would be way easier than writing all those decimals. So negative 166 over 165. And it's perfectly fine to do that. All right, next question. Negative 2/5, so negative alpha y equals 2/5, tab out, times 50 times 1/2. And the answer is negative 10. So most of these, the calculator is going to do the work for you, but you do have to know how to put them in. Okay, this next part is probably the more challenging part, so please tune in and pay attention. Here I have 11x minus everything in parentheses. Well, this is basically saying that you're going to subtract everything in parentheses from 11x. So you're basically just going to distribute the negative. You are not distributing the 11x. Remember that distributive property works like this one where you're multiplying. So I'm just going to distribute because this is 11x minus 4 and minus x. Now, if you remember the other day, I said every variable has a coefficient of 1 if there's nothing there. So now all I'm going to do is combine like terms. I combine 11x minus 1x, and 11 minus 1 is 10x. Keep the minus 4, or plus negative 4, however you want to write it. So remember, this is the same answer as this, and I would take either one. All right, on the next one, this is distributive property, but the first thing I need to do is change, and that's just going to protect us from making a mistake. I'm going to distribute the 4x by multiplication to the x, so negative 4 times 1, because there's a coefficient of 1 here, is negative 4, and x times x is x squared. I'm going to keep my plus sign, and negative 4 times negative 2 is positive 8. Keep the x. I cannot combine these because they are not like terms. So that's my answer. All right, on this one, this is basically saying all the terms on top are being divided by negative 20. Well, how many terms are there? There are 2. 1, 2. So I'm going to separate them. The first term, negative 4x, needs to be divided by negative 20. Keep my plus sign. The second term, positive 12, needs to be divided by negative 20. And now I'm simply going to simplify. If you have forgotten how to simplify, please just use your alpha y equals button. So you can literally go alpha y equals negative 4 over negative 20, and it will simplify it to 1/5. 1/5, I have to keep the x. It can simply come out to the side or stay on top with a 1, plus, and I'm going to simplify the next fraction. Alpha y equals 12 over negative 20. Negative 3/5. Okay, flip to the back. We are going to identify like terms, coefficients, and constants. So let's talk about them. A term separated by adding and subtracting signs. Like terms, x's can be combined with x's, y's with y's. X squared with x squared. Coefficients, the number in front of the variable. And the constants are just the numbers by themselves. So no variables. All right. What are the coefficients in this set? Well, the first thing I'm going to do is change everything that has a subtraction sign. Well, that's a negative 10 plus 3x. I see a subtraction sign, so I'm going to change so that I know this 2 has a negative value. A coefficient is a number in front of the variable. So here I don't have a coefficient. Here I have a variable. The coefficient is 3. Here I have variables, and the coefficient is negative 2. Okay, the constants are the numbers by themselves. So So this is a number by itself, so negative 10. This is a number by itself, so positive 4. The terms are separated by adding and subtracting signs. So here's a term, here's a term, here's a term, here's a term. So negative 10, 3x, negative 2xy, and positive 4. And the like terms, remember x's can be combined with x's, y's with y's. So my like terms, I can combine a negative 10 and I can combine positive 4. I cannot combine anything else because these are not alike, because this is an x and this is an xy. All right, I'm not going to do this one with y'all. You can do that one on your own. Remember to change, 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 because that will tell you that that number has a negative value assigned to it. All right, down here, remember your real number chart. So all numbers are real. They are either rational or irrational. If they're rational, they might be an integer, and if they're an integer, they might be whole. All right, the square root of 37. Remember, irrational are all your square roots that aren't perfect. Well, the square root of 37 is not perfect, and if I don't know that, I can type it in my calculator. It is not perfect. So it is simply irrational and real, because all numbers are real. 3/12 is a fraction, so automatically it's not irrational. 3/12 actually simplifies. If you don't know, go to alpha y equals 3 over 12, and it simplifies to a fourth. Well, a fourth is not whole, it's not an integer, but it is rational and it is real. And be careful, because I mixed these up compared to your assignment from the other night, because I think real was right here. The square root of 81 is perfect. The square root of 81 is actually 9. And 9 is a whole number. So we go here. So it'd be whole. If it's whole, it's an integer, it's rational, and it's real. And then pretend if this was a negative, it would be negative 5, because 10 halves is 5. So it would be integer, rational, real. But it's 5, so it's whole, integer, rational, real. Now, please don't forget the one that I told y'all that was going to be on the test. It's going to ask, what is the perimeter and area of a rectangle? And it's going to give you a rectangle, and it's going to give you, like, the length is, let's just pretend it's like 5 plus 6w. And the width is, just say, like 2. For perimeter, you got to add all the sides. So this is what perimeter would look like. 2 plus 2, because 2 plus 2, plus 5 plus 6w, plus 5 plus 6w. And then you would just go combine your like terms. So I can combine numbers with numbers. So all those numbers could be combined together. So 5 plus 5 plus 2 plus 2, that's 10 plus 4 is 14. Why did I write 10? 10 plus 2 is 14, plus, and then I can combine my w's. 6w plus 6w is 12w. And that would be the perimeter of the shape. And then the area would be found by doing length times width. Well, here's my length, here's my width. I need to multiply this by this whole thing. So I got to put this in parentheses. Do 2 times 5 plus 6w. That becomes distributive property. 2 times 5 is 10, plus 2 times 6w is 12w. There's nothing else I can do here. So I would say that's the area, that's the perimeter. All right, I hope this helped y'all. Make sure you study it.